Good evening and welcome to the BSN's news coverage of the 1940 presidential election. Tonight, we will be watching as presidential candidate of the Republican Party, Charles Lindbergh, looks to expel the hopeful three-term president of the Democratic Party, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Some issues at stake tonight is the American involvement in aiding Great Britain in the second European conflict of the century, the ongoing economic disaster of the last decade, and the rise of anti-Semitism. And we have our first states of the evening. Rhode Island has been called for Roosevelt, while Connecticut, Delaware, and Alabama are still counting up their final votes. We can now call the states of Massachusetts and Maryland for Roosevelt, and Virginia and Kentucky for Lindbergh, giving Lindbergh his first state of the night. Okay, bear with me, we have some results coming out of New England. Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont have all been called for Lindbergh, pushing Lindy ahead of FDR in the electoral votes. The results in Georgia and Florida are looking too close to call. Both of these states may end up being upset elections for the incumbent president, as these were both states that were predicted to go to FDR with a comfortable margin of at least 10 to 20. And now we have some good news for the Roosevelt campaign. We can now call the states of Pennsylvania and New York for the incumbent, and now that the counting is all said and done, we can now call the states of Georgia and Florida for Lindbergh. Okay, we do have multiple calls coming in here at once. Okay, here we go. West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio have all gone to Lindbergh, while Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas have all gone to Roosevelt. And now that the electoral votes are all added up, we are now showing that Roosevelt has retaken the lead, currently sitting with 140 electoral votes, while Lindbergh is slightly behind with 130 electoral votes as well. We are now seeing some early reports out of the South. We are now showing that North and South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama are all going for Roosevelt. You know, as I was saying, Lindbergh's campaigning in... we have some more results here. Coming in, New Jersey and Connecticut have both been called for Lindbergh, and Delaware has also been called for Roosevelt. As I was saying, Lindbergh's campaigning in a lot of these states that Roosevelt was really campaigning in seems to have been really effective. You are seeing a lot of these voters who may have supported Roosevelt in the first two terms kind of getting disenfranchised, not only with him running for a third term, which will be unprecedented if he wins. You will also see a lot of people not liking the fact that the U.S. is supplying military aid to Great Britain. And on the other side of that, you have a lot of people who wish to have a strong U.S. military looking at Lindbergh and seeing Lindbergh's points of how the U.S. Air Force is really under-equipped. There's not enough funding going into our military, and you are seeing these effects of not only the people who don't want intervention, but the people who may kind of be on the fence about intervention, seeing that Lindbergh is wanting to reform our military, something that you don't really hear too much from the FDR campaign. Okay, and now we have some more results coming in from the Northwest. Michigan and Wisconsin have both been called for Lindbergh, while Missouri, Iowa, and Minnesota are following suit, joining the Lindy campaign. Okay, we have a bunch of calls to make from the northern states. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas will all go to Lindbergh, while Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho will all go to Roosevelt, pushing the vote to 197 electoral votes for Roosevelt, 246 for Lindy. Oklahoma has been called for Roosevelt, and Texas is looking too close to call. Out of the Southwest, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah have all been called for Lindbergh, and Colorado is looking too close to call as well. We can safely call Nevada for Roosevelt, and Oregon is going to FDR. Now, with Colorado being called for Lindbergh, what was thought to be an easy night for Roosevelt is turning out to be a suspenseful contest of wits. Now, with Washington going for Roosevelt, the Electoral College is now looking at 224 for Roosevelt, 262 for Lindbergh. We have to remember, with there being 531 electoral votes at play in this election, one only needs to get 266 to win, giving Lindbergh only 4 electoral votes needed, while Roosevelt needs to get 45. So it is really coming down to the two states of Texas and California, which are still at play. Now, with all precincts reporting in, we can now officially call Texas for Roosevelt, one of the last two states needed for Roosevelt to have a victory. Now it all comes down to California and their 22 electoral votes. With the results now being counted on and delayed for hours and hours, the Roosevelt and Lindy campaign are now anxiously waiting for these results. With all precincts now reporting, California's 22 electoral votes have been called for Lindbergh, giving Lindbergh 284 electoral votes, 18 more than what is needed to become President of the United States, and Roosevelt fell in second place with 247 electoral votes, making Lindbergh the 33rd President of these United States of America. Roosevelt is now giving his concession speech, and Lindbergh is now celebrating in Columbus, Ohio. We are now getting first reports from Lindbergh's new administration. They now promise to cancel all aid to Great Britain and France. It is now, in quotes, it is now time to put America first and keep America safe from the dictators in Europe and keep our boys alive instead of dying in the fields fighting a European war. FDR's campaign has also released a statement saying that even though democracy may be in a dark time right now, we will try again, we will campaign, and we will succeed in 1944. Now it has been 3 months into Lindbergh's administration. Great Britain is holding back the German army at the English Channel. The war in Russia has been seeing some stalemates and some Russian advances westward. There has been very limited, I repeat, very limited sources saying that American ships have been seen in German docks unloading military equipment and oil, with some protests coming out of New York protesting this action of military aid to Germany against the Soviet Union. The president has come out and stated that the threat of communism outweighs the threat of fascism, and we should work together with our brothers to continue the fight and secure the world from communism. Winston Churchill was swift to denounce these actions and say this is just pandering to the fascist rule, and he is enabling Adolf Hitler to continue his reign. That is all for now. Stay safe out there, America. BSN, signing off.